Starfire Protocol is officially back. Hands down, one of the best builds I ended up using for day one Crota's End was with Starfire Protocol. I know Starfire got heavily nerfed and everybody acts like it's completely dead, but I honestly think with this setup that I'm going over in the video, Starfire is much stronger than even Sunbracers. Don't get me wrong, Sunbracers are fantastic, but there is no way to deny that you need to force an aggressive playstyle to use them, and it was nowhere near optimal to run during Crota's End. Starfire, on the other hand, is brain-numbingly easy. You get grenades every 10 to 15 seconds, if not quicker, and you use them when you need. That's it. Looking over the build itself, fusion grenades never ended up getting a nerf, so these are just as strong as ever before, and with Touch of Flame, this still doubles their damage, so you can use 2 of these to ignite enemies still, which is even more damage. On top of that, with the stealth buff to Ember of Benevolence this season, we're getting double the regen that we used to, which is 400% additional regen to our grenade, our melee, and our class ability, which can then be infinitely procced when using our healing rifts and Well of Radiance. It was also discovered that Starfire now gives 20% increased regen to fusion grenades, so we do have that regen as well. And then lastly, through all of our mods, we get 10% grenade energy every orb we collect, up to 31% energy back whenever we throw our grenade, and then 25% grenade energy just by using our class ability. This build also works extremely well in DPS rotation still. You can easily use the grenades to proc Monochromatic Maestro for 10% more damage this season, which works with both Apex Predator and Lament, which makes it perfect against Ear Ute and Crota. I think this build is way better than Sunbracers, and I think now it's actually in a really balanced spot, so I doubt a nerf will come anytime soon. I've personally started to use this a lot in the bridge encounter for Crota's End as well, to deal with things like the champions, the sword bearers, and the ogres, all of which are extremely tanky. And once again, I think the best part is it requires no focus to play with. You just have extremely high uptime on your grenades, which deal a ton of damage, making it one of the most practical builds for endgame content. You can just focus on gunplay and use the grenades when you need them, rather than try to force a specific playstyle that might be completely unoptimal in a certain setting. As always, if you guys do end up enjoying the build and the video, make sure to drop a quick like and sub down below. We are super close to 80,000 subs on the channel. And with that said, let's hop straight into the build. Taking a look at the Dawnblade or Solar Warlock subclass, obviously you want to make sure you're running Well of Radiance. Just like before with Starfire Protocol, this does count as an empowered source. So anytime we're dealing damage or even getting weapon final blows inside of our well, that increases our grenade regen. But more important than that, we are, as you can see, getting restoration and applying restoration to our teammates, which is going to proc one of our fragments, which is Ember of Benevolence, which we'll be going over in a bit here. When it comes to your class ability, make sure in any team-based settings you are on Healing Rift. This will also work with Ember of Benevolence for increased grenade regen, which is pretty massive now. And then after that, if you're in a solo setting, I would recommend just doing Phoenix Dive. You get Cure pretty much instantly, and it's also a way quicker animation to pick up things like Orbs of Power, so that you don't have to sit there and place your Rift down each and every time. You can choose to run whatever melee you want. Celestial Fire or Incinerator Snap are both going to work. They're not really going to do too much for the build, so run whatever you prefer. And then last up for our main abilities, we are obviously running Fusion Grenades. People act like these are terrible ever since the Starfire nerf, but they still have a really short cooldown, the second shortest of all the Solar Grenades, at 1 minute and 13 seconds. They still do a ton of damage, especially against single targets, champions, mini bosses, things like that. And their ad clear is also still insane. With Touch of Flame obviously being our first aspect, these get even better. Now our fusion grenades explode twice, dealing essentially double the damage that they would at base. Second to this, it doesn't really matter what you go with. I like Icarus Dash just for the movement, but you can also go for Heat Rises if you guys like that instead. Last up, we have 4 fragments which are running with the build. I recommend sticking to these 4 fragments and these 4 only because they all have a pretty important role in the build and getting our grenades back. There is one that we could switch out depending on if you're playing solo versus in a team setting, which I will be going over. But other than that, I would stick to these 4 fragments. First up is Ember of Ashes. This increases the scorch stacks we apply to targets by 50%. In the case of using double fusion grenades and Touch of Flame, this means we're guaranteeing an ignition to proc for every 2 grenades we hit on an enemy in a short duration, which means throwing 2 fusions at like a boss or a champion is 5 instances of damage with that ignition, which is massive. We are constantly killing enemies with grenades and our melee, which all apply Scorch. So this makes it so that enemies that are defeated, which have Scorch stacks applied to them, spawn in a Fire Sprite. And the main reason we're using Ember of Searing for this reason is so those Fire Sprites can be picked up, which grant a small portion of our grenades straight back. Ember of Benevolence is a really important fragment with this build, but you could swap it out because it only works in a team setting. So this is the one you could swap out, but with this, anytime we apply Restoration, Cure, or Radiant to our teammates, we get increased grenade, melee, and class ability regen for a short duration. The duration is 6 seconds, but the increased regen is 400% to each of our abilities that are regenning. And in the case of our fusion grenades, we can throw down a rift or our well and have teammates constantly go in and out of this, or just spam rifts as you're going to be able to do with Starfire Protocol. And we're constantly getting that increased regen for our grenades, which is insanely quick. And then lastly, just for survivability, I do also have Ember of Resolve. We are constantly spamming grenades. So with this build, we do want that increased Cure for that extra survivability in endgame content, so that anytime we get a final blow, we have Cure applied to us, which is like 60 or 70 HP straight back. On screen right now, if you guys want to pause the video, are all the mods so you can apply them yourself, or as always, there will be a full Mobalytics build and a dim link below that you guys can quickly apply everything yourself. On our helmets, we are running 1 copy of Ashes to Assets. We're spamming grenades, so this just gives increased super energy gains when we get grenade final blows. And I do typically run a Siphon mod. Orbs of Power are very useful with the build. I was rocking a Void weapon for most of the gameplay in this video, but I would just hot swap this for whatever weapon you choose to run. On our gauntlets, Firepower makes it so that our grenade final blows spawn in extra orbs of power. And then with this, as we collect orbs, we get armor charge stacks, and we can consume those stacks with grenade kickstart to keep our grenade uptime even higher for our fusions, allowing us to spam them more often. Lastly, because it's not intrinsic to Starfire Protocol, I do have Fastball, which is really useful with fusion grenades. Just in case you somehow missed it, our exotic chest piece is Starfire Protocol. Absolutely make sure you're running this with the build. And then with this, for our mods, I just have 3 copies of damage resistance mods for most areas of endgame content. On our legs, collecting an Orb of Power with Recuperation gives 70 HP straight back. This helps a ton with our survivability. We also get increased grenade energy when picking up Orbs of Power through Innervation. I believe this is 10% per orb we pick up. And then also, we do have stacks on stacks, so that as we collect orbs, rather than getting 1 armor charge stack at base, we now get 2, which feeds more frequently into grenade kickstart to give us higher percentages of our grenade back when we use our grenade. Last up on our class item, I do have Double Bomber. This should give Warlocks 25% of their grenades straight back whenever they use their class ability, which happens a lot because Starfire instantly refunds our class ability whenever we get a grenade final blow with a fusion. And then after this, I do still use Powerful Attraction. Because we're making a ton of Orbs of Power around the arena through our weapon final blows and through grenade kills, we're constantly spamming our class ability, whether it's our Rift or our Phoenix Dive, so we're also constantly collecting these Orbs of Power as well. That is pretty much it for the build and the video. Let me know your thoughts on Starfire Protocol in the comments down below. This is one of my favorite builds to use recently, and I think it just works in any environment. I do also stream almost every night over on my Twitch. We're currently starting up some Garden of Salvation speedruns tonight, so if you guys want to drop by, hang out, and see what that process is like, a link to my Twitch is in the description down below. As always, have a good one, guys. Peace.